Hi, everybody. It's good to talk to you again. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Harley Carnes, of course. And we are welcoming today someone with one of those inspirational stories that you rarely hear because they rarely happen. Wesley Barron is a friend of mine, and I've known for, a year or so. And I want to say welcome very much. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Now, a lot of people are wondering, why are you here? Wesley is more than just a guy who is surviving and has survived cancer. This is a guy who's done a lot in his life, and we're going to learn a little about it, and I think be inspired by it. So, first of all, Wes Barron, welcome again.
Thank you.
Okay, let's start by getting you to tell us a little bit about yourself, because this is the introductory moment.
Right. I don't know what to say. I had a very normal life, a great life. I love life more than anything. I've had a wonderful family. When I was born, I had 2 parents and 10 grandparents still living. So I grew up in a very family-oriented environment, going back many generations, and had a very fond affection for my grandfathers. Both of them kind of influenced my hobbies in life, as you say. I had one grandfather who during World War II would work for Bell Aircraft and always told stories about airplanes, and my other grandfather had a gas station and told car stories, so
You got into both of them.
I got into both of them.
Well, now let me. Where was this, first of all?
Oh, I grew up outside of Atlanta, up in the North Georgia area. Whole family was from that area. My father was with the Centers for Disease Control. He was the longest person to be the budget officer for CDC at 38 years. My mom was is an interesting lady. She has had several careers. She started out selling real estate, secretary, hairdresser. Started college when I was 2 years old. She now has her doctorate and taught school for a while, was with the State Department of Education in charge of curriculum. Retired from the State Department, went to a small school system in North Georgia, Hall County, and had a second great career. I'm very blessed. My parents they'll be turning 90 and 83 the last day of the year. They're still with us, still in fairly good health. They drive down from Atlanta to our beautiful location here in Florida often and spend a lot of time down here with us.
They drive down here.
Dad drives down here at 90 years old still.
Yeah, my dad drove right till the last as well. But,
Yeah.
Now tell people a little bit about North Georgia, because folks don't know. I mean,
Well-
I lived in Georgia, so I do know. I know Georgia pretty doggone well.
Georgia was wonderful. It has gotten crowded. It used to be it's still beautiful. It's you have all 4 seasons. I grew up in the country, so when I was growing up, we drove everywhere. Grew up on a little bit of property, so I had my motorcycles, my dirt bikes. I am an only child, so I had to entertain myself as a kid, but
Right.
That was easy to do when you have acreage, creeks, and unlike today, we played in the creek, we played on motorcycles, we didn't wear helmets.
Back in the day, Mom, if she got tired of messing with us, she could say, "Go out in the yard and play.
Absolutely.
Go play in the woods, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll see you at dinner time."
Yeah.
And you'd listen for the dinner bell, so to speak. You'd hear Mom, and I can remember, there's 6 of us kids, and I can remember her out there, talking about, yelling. She'd yell the name, and I'd come a-running, for sure.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I did have a little different was, like I said, Mom didn't start college till I was 2 years old. So I spent a lot of time as a small child at the university. So the security guards at a couple of Georgia State University, Kennesaw, the security guards knew me because Mom would drop me off in the TV lounge, go to class, come back. You could do that back then. Or I'd stay with my grandparents. I spent summers with my great-grandparents on a working farm. I mean, it was just, I had an incredible childhood.
Wow. And you got into cars.
Yes, my dad bought the first antique car in 1973. So I was 8 years old. It was a 1926 Model T Ford. Actually, we were already into cars. Dad, I want to tell that I still have my first car. Dad ordered a 1972 Mustang convertible before show date.
Wow.
So we walked in before show date, saw the car. I was 6 years old. I said, Dad, I love the car. He said, when you're 16, that car is yours. So at 16, I already had at 6, I started saying I had a car. At 16, I did put the car upside down in a ditch. We pulled it out, restored it, and it's still sitting in the garage, ready to be restored again.
Yeah, we had angels on our shoulders.
Oh, how?
I used to tell people, I said, Dukes of Hazzard, that was real.
Oh, yeah. That was North Georgia.
That was North Georgia. That was all. I mean, I was to the east of Atlanta, lived there, went to high school there. And, matter of fact, the Dukes of Hazzard, a lot of it was filmed in the town that I grew up in, or spent a lot of my youth in Covington, Georgia, which is east of Atlanta. And, the general lead in the opening scene does a big jump. That was next to my house.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of things in that neck of the woods where they did some filming. But yeah, I mean, look, we used to run for them cops just for fun.
Yeah, and we trained on dirt roads. I mean, I learned to drive on dirt roads.
That's right.
So
right. Drifting, we didn't even know what the name was, what the word was, but we did it all the time.
That's what you did.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Yeah. So tell us about your exploits with cars. I mean, that is not where it ended.
Oh, no. Like 16. I say, Dad, we collected cars. We've got, we still to this day have 20-something cars up there, a bunch of old Model A Fords, 36 Ford, 40 Ford, just a bunch of antiques. I also enjoyed racing a lot. So nearing college, some friends told me, hey, if you go to the racetrack up Road Atlanta, you can volunteer and be a part of it. So I volunteered to be a quarter worker and do rescue. So I got into that. I really loved it because here the cars were on the track doing 130 miles, 140 miles an hour, and someone wrecked, and you would run out with the car still on the track. You're running out, jumping into a burning car, pulling somebody. It was just a lot of fun. Right. Went from that into starter, and so I was the guy that would sit there and throw the green flag, throw the checkered flags, and I loved it. Always wanted to. So finally bought a car, went out there, got my competition license, ran several races, wrecked it, was having another car built, and unfortunately, as we say, life gets in the way of things. So didn't quite finish that second race car, but it's still sitting there.
Well, one day, maybe.
That one may be behind me. We'll see. That car's behind me.
Yeah. Well, you graduated, too. I mean, you're doing all this stuff with cars.
Right.
And then along came airplanes. Most folks would say that's graduating. That's moving up.
Well, I've always had a love for airplanes. As I said, my grandfather, he wired the Enola Gay. He worked on all the jet stars that ever flew. He would come home and tell stories about Gloria Vanderbilt buying her plane and her coming in and him, having to interact with her and how she acted. We'll leave that story off because he didn't particularly care for the way she acted. Howard Hughes, he met several times because of the jet stars. He was actually offered a job working with, and I said, his big claim to fame was the Enola Gay. He during World War II, he was not able to go into the service. He went down to register, came back that night. They had deferred him. So he went to work for Bell Aircraft. Well, at the end of the war, they walked into the office and said, Mr. Thompson, here's a set of plans. Here's 3 badges. There are 4 B-29 bombers down in those tents down there. Just go down there and put this wiring harness on them. And he started looking at it. He goes, this doesn't make any sense. I said, Mr. Thompson, don't ask. So he went down and put this wiring harness on these 4 brand new B-29s. He said it was strange. They took out the bomb racks and just put these 2 hooks in there. Couldn't figure out what it was. And finally it got to the point where the management said, look, we've got to get these things done. Do not leave. They couldn't call home. They couldn't.
Wow. So
he ended up having to stay there. His father-in-law came down to Bell Aircraft and started asking, I haven't seen my son-in-law. What's going on? Well, we can't. And my great-grandfather said, well, a man's wife could be dying and he would never know. Well, playing the old telephone game, word got back to my grandfather that his wife was dying. So they gave him a 24-hour leave to go check on his wife, but he had to be back in 24 hours.
Well, there you go.
So he always wanted an airplane. So back in the 90s, my best friend and I, we would ride motorcycles one weekend. The next weekend, he had a 172 Cessna, was an instructor. we might go flying one weekend, ride motorcycles one weekend, or be at the racetrack. And that was kind of our life, was one week, every weekend we were at one of the three places. So I finally got to start flying some, and looked at buying a plane, looked at a couple of small single engine Grumman, two-place, and actually did buy a BD-5 kit plane like the old James Bond.
Yeah.
I bought one of those kits, was going to build that. That was just a crazy idea, but didn't do it, let it go. And then a few years later, I was running a program for the Army Reserve, and my bosses said, we're going to use your resume. You're coming to D.C. We want you to set up all the IT processes for TSA. And I said, well, I'm not coming to D.C. They said, yeah, you are. So they won the contract. I went to D.C. I got up there. I just left my house in Atlanta, and I didn't like the 10-hour drive. I didn't want to fly commercial. And I said, this is the perfect excuse.
Got an
I
airplane.
almost bought that plane. Exactly. I went online, tried 2 or 3 times to buy planes, kept missing them. Finally, this real nice, a very solid plane popped up in Nashville. Went down, saw it, bought it, had it delivered to the D.C. area, out to Manassas, Virginia. Walked into a flight school, said, hey, y'all see that plane out there?
Yeah.
I just bought it. I need a license for it.
That's right.
And so
that's my plane. Teach me how to fly.
Exactly. That was so they're like, okay, you are serious about this.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I was also working 120 hours a week. So I was trying to cram flying time in with 120-hour work weeks. So it took me a little longer to get my license, even though I had my plane than I'd anticipated. But it was worth it.
Yeah. Well, not very many of us can say we learned in our own airplane. Yeah. That's a fact.
I highly suggest it. At the end of the day, I bought the plane. This was many years ago for $28,000, sold it for $30,000, and got 100 hours use out of it.
Yeah. So you had an airplane for free.
I had an airplane.
And you
for
got
free.
a license for free. Well, not free. You had to,
pretty much, right?
You had to pay the dummy in the right seat.
Yeah, that was it. And that guy that your job as a student is to get yourself killed,
right?
And the guy on the right
is to keep that from happening.
Exactly. Yeah. And thank goodness they did that.
Well, there's we all, as students, we remember the things that we did that. I had a great instructor. He was a former Navy guy, and so nothing would shake him. Nothing,
right.
And so I had one particularly bad landing, and he looked over at me and he said, you can't do that very often. I said, no. He said, no, if you do, we're going to die.
Yeah.
Because he had to fix it, And he said, if I don't fix it, then we got problems. I said, yes, sir, I understand that, sir.
Oh, I've had a few of those. I remember Greg and I coming in, and I was just 172, and I messed up, started bouncing the landing. He yelled my plane, and I'm sitting there. I went, gee, Greg, what did I do? He goes, hold on, let me save our lives first. So,
well, yeah, and and then you go on. And in my case, went on to teach, to be that other guy, right. And I, instructed for about 30 odd years. Still an instructor, but not as active as I was. But nonetheless, yeah, you have times, and they usually happen when that person is, your students become pretty good, mm-hmm. and you're pretty convinced that everything's fine. And so you relax. And that's when, they're 15, 20 feet in the air, just about to stall. They think they're about to touch the ground. And the reality is we're getting ready to impact the terrain a little harder than we want.
Or you can do it, having your own plane. You also have the bad parts of it. I bought a plane that had 2,200 hours on the airframe, but only 200 hours on the engine. Brand new engine. Great thing, right? The first 300 or 400 hours of an engine are the bad times.
That's right.
And sure enough, in training, we went up. It was so ironic. We went up to do an engine failure. So we go down. My instructor says, take it to 3,500 and level the nose right over the Culpeper Airport, or the Warrenton Airport. 3,500, drop the nose. The plane goes, bam! I looked at my instructor, but your plane.
That's right.
So we had an actual engine failure during my first training for engine failure.
Oh, wow. Yeah, people don't, a lot of people, you say, you went up and did what?
Yeah.
Yeah, we went up and we turned the engine off. We don't really turn it off. We pull the throttle back and, simulate the idea that the engine might have just quit. And the whole point is to get the student to first not panic. You have time.
Oh, yes.
You have a lot more time than people think. Because I've, so many people, especially young students who come, and they think they've got to be real quick with whatever it is, the decisions they make. I said, no. If you're in a race car and things are going bad, you got to be real quick because things are happening very, very fast. In an airplane, you have a lot more time. Altitude is your friend, airspeed is your life.
Exactly.
The mantra. And it's actually true. And we've had those moments, haven't we?
Well, there's one thing about, you just said something that's really, I've raced cars, I've flown airplanes. A lot of people share that love. And there's one thing about it. The slower you go on some of those things, the better off you are. When I was trying to race, the more I tried to go fast, I'd go slower. When I just said, okay, relax and slow down and relax on what I was doing, once I relaxed and slowed down, I was better. I was faster. Mm-hmm. Same thing when I started learning to fly. Slow down, think about it. And if you were not rushed and all frazzled, you flew better.
Yeah, that's right. So. And it works that way. So I think it's very clear to anybody listening. So how many years have you been flying, by the way?
Well, I bought the plane in 2011, didn't get my license until 2014.
Okay.
And then when I bought that one, I have a very caring mother who, even though we have cars that go back to 1928, she thought that me flying a 1972 airplane was just too old, and I needed to find something newer. I said, Mom, the average age of the fleet's in 1968, and I'm in a 72. She goes, no, we've lost your grandfather. You have his inheritance. Why don't you use your grandfather's inheritance, who loved airplanes, and buy something newer? So I went out and bought a 2003 AG5B Tiger with all the nicely equipped, sold by, and I started flying for a few years until what we're going to talk about later happened. And then I've got back on the flying, but trying to push to get back to doing all the flying I was doing.
Tell me a little bit about this. It's very clear that life and living it is everything.
Yes.
It's very, very important stuff.
Yeah. I've had many people say, oh, you like race cars, you ride motorcycles, now I fly airplanes. Oh, Wes, you must have some kind of death wish. And it's exactly the opposite. And I've read other people that have enjoyed doing these kind of things.
Yeah, far from a death wish.
Yeah, far from a death wish. It's so far from a death wish. I really want to keep living. I love to experience everything in life. Had a great uncle one time said a man should know a little bit about everything and everything about something. Well, the more I can experience in life, the happier I am. So yes, I want to experience the long motorcycle ride. Yes, I want to experience flying. Yes, I'm very proud of my education. Yes, I love to learn every day. I just want to see more, do more. And I've told people that, I am going through cancer. And if I die tomorrow, I have lived more of a full life than most people. But sorry, I ain't done yet.
No.
So
cancer is an intrusion.
Yeah.
It's an interruption.
It is.
And it's got to piss you off.
It is. And, we'll get into this more, but really the way I feel about it now, I've had to quit working. I've got to concentrate on staying alive now. But I think my job now is convince people you can survive this and you can thrive through this. And we're close. We are so close. If I'd had this 10 years ago, I wouldn't be talking to you.
Can we talk about the type of cancer and all that?
Sure. I have stage 4 renal cell kidney cancer. It was discovered as a freak in 2018. They removed my kidney, said, oh, you're great. 95% chance you'll never have cancer again. And 7 months later, went in for the checks, and I'd gone through a situation where I had a complication called kinesicetes, where I was building up fluid. They said that as an indicator you still have cancer, but we know we got it. Well, 7 months later, I go in. My doctor's gone. New doctor comes in, and on February 13th of 2019, at 1300 hours in room 13, he says, you've got stage 4 cancer, and it's in your lungs. It's migrated to your lungs. And I said, well, what does that mean? He said, well, we don't know. And said, technically, you probably have about a 12% chance of being here in 5 years. He said, it's not, the prognosis is not good. He said,
Wow.
And then 3 months later, the cancer popped up in my pelvic bone. And once it goes to your bone, they said, well,
Now you're done.
that pretty much gives you 17 months to live. So you might as well get your affairs in order. You probably won't make it past, I use the date November of 2020.
Right. Well, how did you know something was up?
Well, that was the strange thing. There was no indicators. Now, I had been a smoker. I had a stressful job in D.C. So one time I tried to go in and get one of the cancer scans because of my smoking history, and I had 3 years too short of a smoking history to justify getting in. So I left at TSA, took another contract position that would allow remote work. So I moved back to Atlanta, went to a doctor, and I was having just a weird sensation in my abdomen. Thought it was from a hernia mesh replacement. They had all those ads. So I said, well, I better have this checked. So I went and had that checked, and they did a CT, came back and said, well, your mesh is fine. However, you have a nodule, you have a tumor on your kidney. And so then it was determined to be kidney cancer. And
if you had a message, and I'll ask you this question about a message to people more than once, but this is about detection. What would that message be? Because you didn't have very much in the way of a warning.
I had none. And that's the thing. If you have any indicators, they thought they got mine. And I mean, when you think about it, they found mine in May, took the kidney out in July, and had 95% probability it wouldn't be there. Well, that bad migration, or the getting out, that couple of cells had gotten out of that system. If we'd caught it 6 months earlier, maybe it would have stayed contained in my kidney. So, yeah, any indication, don't hesitate. Now, the big thing is, I found there's only one person that cares about you being alive, and that's you. I've got some of the best doctors. I've had some of the worst doctors. We'll go through some of them, but I've had doctors that literally thought, you've got cancer. You need to go to hospice. And I'll tell you that story later.
Whoa.
And then I've got one who is the best kidney cancer doctor. What happened, I went out, when I first got it, I wanted to live. And when I saw I had cancer, I wasn't going to the local. I went online, and MD Anderson, go to MD Anderson, Texas. I called MD Anderson. They said, hey, there's a location down in Jacksonville. I was living in Atlanta. Went there. Well, everything was great. Good hospital, good people. The first few doctors I had were good, but it was a mixed bag. When I had that second round, I started running into some doctors who were not the caliber I expected. So I called back to MD Anderson in Texas. I said, well, they use our process. They're
not really MD Anderson.
They're not really MD Anderson, but they have the name. So I I was living in Atlanta, went to Emory, right there at CDC, and had a doctor who had good credentials, but I just wasn't comfortable. And I went online, I said, who is the best kidney cancer doctor in the world? And I started getting this Dr. Hans Hammers, had been head of research at Johns Hopkins, was now at the University of Texas Southwest. So, okay. So I called the University of Texas Southwest switchboard. I'd like to speak to Dr. Haber's office. Hold, please. I'm holding, and about 3 or 4 minutes later, this heavy German accent, Dr. Hammers, how may I help you? And I'm like,
whoa.
I'm trying to get your office. He goes, well, you got me. How'd you get my cell phone? I'm going, just a switchboard. He goes, well, what do you have? I said, well, I have stage 4 cancer. He said, well, get out here and I'll take care of it. He and I have become best friends. He truly is probably the best kidney cancer doctor in the world. I continue to go to him. I just got back from seeing him. And I mean, we are like, we see, when I walk in and he walks in, it's, oh, hey, old chap, how are you doing? You look great. How's your mom? He is just really concerned about my life.
So there's a message there. Find the best doctor you can possibly
Absolutely.
find.
Anywhere. I am going through that with a friend right now who she contacted me with breast cancer. And we've gone back for years, and she started telling me all this stuff about breast cancer, and I'm sitting here going, right, it's that sounds pretty serious. Well, she finally calls me and she goes, wow, they just told me that it's stage 4 and I've got 3 years to live. I said, well, yeah, I thought you knew that. She didn't realize. Well, she's just going to the local hospital, and I suggested, hey, this is pretty serious, aggressive. You're waiting to go and just be a person. You're going to have to take control. I said, I go to Mayo Clinics and I go wherever I need to go. You ought to look at, oh, well, those are just inconvenient. I want the short drive.
Oh, no.
Yeah, this is your life.
Short drive to a shortcut.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Right. So.
Well, people have said, depending on the cancer, just go to Sloan and get it over with. And MD Anderson, just go there, get it done. Because you go to the best. You look at the tippy top of the mountain, and that's where you go.
Yeah. University of Texas, like I say, for kidney cancer, he happens to be, but yes, MD Anderson, Sloan, the Mayo Clinics, Johns Hopkins, when you go to those, there is a difference. I'll go in there and I'll say, I hurt here. Oh, really? They actually are set up to say, okay, well, we have these 4 scans scheduled later this afternoon. And you've got to do that if you want to be alive. And a lot of times, the doctors will just say, oh, well, don't worry about it. You're not. I just had a doctor recently. I'll tell you about a bad experience I had at Emory with palliative care, but I just had a great experience with palliative care. I've lost the ability to walk unaided. We'll have to get in that. But we went and talked to a palliative care doctor the other day, and he said that the thing about me not walking, he said, the problem is that doctors look at me, say, you're terminally ill. And they keep calling me terminal. And really, I had a year to live. And he said they don't really, if they find something, they find a plausible, oh, well, it may be this. He probably doesn't have a year to live. Just make him comfortable. He said, I have outlived that skill so long and gone past the curve that I'm no longer terminal. So we got to quit doing he's not going to be here much longer, so just make him comfortable.
Right.
So we have to start looking for solutions. But doctors, they're people too. And if they don't think they have a choice, they'll write you off.
Let's talk about 5 years.
Different people handle cancer different. I've got friends who they have their anniversary of the date they found out, the anniversary of different things. So the February 13th at 1300 hours in room 13, that has meant something to me that, however, in 5 years, I was looking there and realizing I was still alive. And, we live in the best community in the country. We have 700 aircraft in our subdivision. We have the best people. And one of our friends, he was doing a video one time and said that this place is so close to heaven that when you die, you just laterally step over. That's pretty much where we live.
It is pretty close.
So I was talking about how happy I was that I was still alive. And although the treatment has taken a lot of my ability to use my legs, I still am able to fly with aids. So I go up with friends like you who are instructors and do instruction now until we come up with, and I'm looking at options to be able to return to flying solo. But so one of my friends.
Wait, I want you to say that statement again, that one sentence. You're looking at options so that you can
return to flying solo. Absolutely.
This is not a guy who's planning to die in a year.
No.
Or in 6 years. Right?
I can't die because one of the options is about a 6-8 month lead time. So I'm having a real problem right now. I love the plane I have. The Tiger is my favorite airplane. And I don't want to get rid of it. So I'm looking at modifications for my Tiger. I have a hard time getting in, but I'm looking at putting more handles on the side so I can pull myself into the plane. We have found an STC special type certificate for a hand control for biplane, for the 172s and for the Tigers. And it's out of production. The patent has expired. So I have several people that are looking at it to possibly build me this hand control, so we'd be able to climb up my plane with handles, get in it, and once I'm in it, I'll be able to use this device, lift up on it, turns on your brakes, left, right for your rudder, up and left for your left brake, up and right for your right brake, and then you reach your throttle through. So you're able to fly without.
Well, that's pretty amazing.
But
that's really cool.
Right, so,
What people now, just so non-pilots who are listening or watching need to understand, we have in an airplane, you control the airplane in 3 axes. If we're in a car, you have a steering wheel, and you can move the nose left and right. Can't move it up or down very much, not very many times, and you don't want to roll it either.
Been there.
But then, the airplane, the car is not going to be usable for a while,
Exactly.
at least. But in an airplane, you can do all of those things, and you can do them all simultaneously. And so it's important to be able to pitch up and down, to roll it left or right, and to move the nose left or right, called yaw. And to do that, most of us use our feet. What you're suggesting is that you'll have a control that will allow you to use your arm to go back and forth, correct, to move the nose back and forth, what you would normally be doing with the pedals. That's a very big deal. Yes. Because now you're going to have to retrain yourself in some ways for what to do with that arm, because you're used to using it for throttle or whatever it may be in your airplane.
And that is something I've thought about, because there's no one out there trained. So I want to have one of my friends who are instructors in the neighborhood.
Yep.
We're going to have to go up, and we're going to have to figure it out.
Yep.
I'm also looking at another airplane. I don't want to go that route, but there's a company in Brazil who is building a light sport, and they have just come out with a 4-place. And it has a similar thing where it has brakes, handles between your legs for the brakes. So you have a left and right brake, because a lot of the planes use differential braking. That's the way you steer my Tiger.
Right.
Is if you want to turn left, you step on the left brake. You want to turn right, there is no connection.
No, there's no nose gear that turns for you.
Right. So this little plane that I found in Brazil, they have a free option to put, and it has the handbrakes here, and then your throttle lever. If you twist it to the left, it presses your left rudder. If you twist it to the right, and then forward back.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a neat plane, and it's a high wing with a low door, big door, so I could get up to it and have some handles and easily get myself in the plane. That one I absolutely could fly solo. With my plane, even with the things, I will probably have friends with me. I've been, my friend here, she will probably fly with me, but I have to have somebody there to make sure I get in safely.
But here's the thing. You are doing it anyway. You're flying.
Yes.
You go up with friends and you fly the plane.
Right.
We actually have a video. Tell us about this video, and then I'm going to actually play it. You can give us a little play-by-play as you go, because a lot of people don't have an idea what it feels like to be up there.
Right.
And it had to feel historic for you that day.
Well, I had started, when I moved here, I had started trying to learn to fly formations. And we were going up during one of the trainings when I found out I was having problems getting in the plane. And so I had to quit training for formations. But yeah, the video you're going to show here, this was February 13th of 2024 at 1,300 hours, 5 years to the minute. Okay, so the video here is of February 13th at 1,300 hours, 5 years to the minute. I had some friends, and we get in my plane. We had a friend of mine who flies a Tiger, who was an instructor. He was in the right seat, John. And then the person who was teaching me to fly formation, Stu, had his Tiger. He was in the second plane. And then we actually had another Tiger pilot who also is a stage 4 cancer patient. So we had 2 stage 4 cancer pilots and 2 others in the planes with us. So 4 of us, 2 planes. We decided to take off and fly formation 5 years to the minute. So I've had several doctors. Will tell a horror story. I would love to have this video get to one of the doctors that told me, and I'll give you a whole story later about her. She told me that I would never fly an airplane again in 2019. She told me I'd probably never drive a car again. Well, here we are, 4 years after her, or almost 5 years, taking off in formation and flying formation.
Right.
Not just,
I'm
not just riding along in an airplane. I am in control, and I've been able to control the plane. At that point, John had to taxi me into position. I can't do the brakes, so he had to taxi me into position, and he was there to make sure I didn't mess up. But I was able to control the plane taking off, and I flew the plane, came in, landed. With the formation, I let him do the landing. Now, a few weeks ago, I went up, and to this day, I cannot taxi, but I can still fly the plane. I did a takeoff, was able to, when you fly takeoff, you have to have a right rudder. So I was able to press the rudder in. I was able to keep the plane lined up for takeoff. I went up, and there's a maneuver of forward slip where you turn the yoke one way. You step on the opposite rudder. It puts the plane sideways for a rapid descent. Able to do those fine. And did 4 landings, so you have to use a lot of rudder on landings, and no issue.
Yeah, the hardest part of flying is obviously taking off and landing. I've told students forever, I said, flying is not dangerous. Well, it is. It's only dangerous, though, when you're next to something hard. And the ground is hard.
Well, what's the old saying? Flying is the second most exciting activity known to man.
Yep.
The most exciting is trying to land one.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell Melissa that story. So, this is when you're coming in to land here in this particular one, and it looks steep to the average person. That's about right, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's that plane. I love flying that plane. That one is a little steeper landing than some of them because I notice we have the PAPIs, which is an indicator, and you want that red one to be red, one to be white. Well, white over white, you'll fly all night. White over red, and then red over red, you're dead.
Right.
My plane, if I'm lined up right, I need to come in a little high because it will descend rapidly.
Well, yeah, you got those short, fast wings. Yeah. Down it comes. Yeah. That's really good. So let's. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean, not just that you've managed
well
to beat the odds and so forth, but I can tell people from my own personal experience of you that they say you can't walk, you walk.
Yeah.
You need you have a walker. But you walk.
Well, I plan to get rid of that walker.
There you go.
And that's what we've been working with right now. I know it's going to be what I have is called radiation-induced plexopathy, we think. They're not even sure. And when you go to people and talk to the doctors, you say, well, what do you treat this? Well, we don't know. I actually had Dr. Hammers the other day. I said, Dr. Hammers, I went online and said, who's the best kidney cancer doctor? I found you. How do I find the best person for this? He goes, well, it's still not a science yet. It's such a new thing. People died before they got to my stage. You don't usually develop radiation-induced plexopathy until 3 or 4 years out. Well, when patients are dying 1 or 2 years out, they never reach the situation I'm in right now. So we don't have a good solution.
Wes, do you ever get tired of being strong, of being the guy who just won't give up?
I do get frustrated. I want to return. I love life. I want to live it. I don't mind. I want to be strong. Okay, that does not ever bother me. In fact, I feel like now that I am not able to work, that my purpose in life is to convince other people, you can do this. You can get through it. So if I can get people to push, I've got a very dear friend here in the neighborhood who she popped up with stage 4 cancer, and she went over and we're having Christmas at her house because this was her last Christmas. She was the last time she was going to get to see her granddaughter for Christmas. So her last Christmas was 3 or 4 years ago. Because I pulled her over and I said, look, I'm supposed to be dead in November 2020. I may not be the prettiest boy in town, but I am good looking for a dead man. So I said, just forget it. Follow me. And so she and I started talking. She went with me to Mayo. We got in. I kept pushing her. And a couple of years later, she is still stage 4. She'll never be considered cured. She still goes to Mayo every 3 or 4 weeks. But they can't find the cancer.
You're an inspiration, just so you know.
That's just what I want people to follow and say yes. Not follow it, but I want them to do what I'm doing. Take control of your life. Take control of your care. We can make it through this.
You are a Pied Piper of never give up.
Exactly.
You're a Pied Piper of it can be done and you can do it.
Yes, I try to give everyone the positive. We can make it through this. We are going to. Dr. Heimers keeps saying, we're not far from the cure. And his thing is to keep me as well preserved so when the cure does come, I can accept the cure. So we're working it, and you just got to. But as I said, you have got to be your own advocate. I had situations in Emory where my doctor there, real good, but there's so many people with this. And if you go to a lot of places, you have to, you get lost in the mix. I wouldn't even see my doctor at Emory. I would see his assistants, his nurse practitioners. And it was just too busy. I started complaining about neck pains in 2019. Oh, well, we're not going to do anything. Well, my neck hurts. I called Dr. Heimers. He said, well, have they done any kind of spine scans? No. So I'd been out of my boat one weekend, bouncing over waves, just all happy. Next weekend, I'm riding my Harley, and I look behind me, and I pull back, and I jerk my neck. Well, I got home that night, and I had such a neck pain that we went to the emergency room. And they did an emergency MRI and found that my C5 vertebrae had been eaten up with cancer and was gone. And that basically I'm bouncing around on my spinal cord.
Oh, this is not good.
Yeah, and they had missed it. They just totally didn't think that my neck pain meant anything, so they didn't worry about it.
They were worried about the hip and that region.
Oh, well. So they went in, and I had a very good surgeon there at Emory who was able to put a cage in, and he did a magnificent job, and I really, really liked him. Thought he was great. And like I said, I've had a mixture of doctors. I had the one who didn't have time for me. I had this surgeon who was outstanding. So we went through, we recovered from that. I had one that I thought was pretty good, but he made a mistake, and I have abdominal damage where he tried a unusual technique to relieve the pain. He gave me an ablation, froze the nerves. Unfortunately, he froze the wrong nerves. Instead of freezing the sensory nerves, he froze my motor nerves, so I had a bulge, and now I have weakness in the abdomen because of his mistake. The one that was the worst, absolutely, was I was a few miles from my parents, so I spent the weekend with them. And one Saturday night, I decided I was in so much pain that I didn't think I'd live through the night. I thought that was it, because this was early on. This was 2019. And that first year was, you didn't know what death meant. And so I had a hard time sleeping well. Had a particularly hard time because of all the pain. So my parents put me in the emergency room. They loaded me up with everything. And Wednesday afternoon, I'm sitting there laying in bed, totally unconscious. And I hear my dad at the foot of my bed going, they're trying to get him ready for hospice. This is October of 2019. They're trying to put me in hospice. Even though I was unconscious, I could hear Dad saying that. And I'm like, oh, no.
That's right. You guys are not paying attention.
Yeah. So I forced myself out of my coma, come to, and I had a palliative care doctor come in, and she goes, why aren't you asking for more painkillers? I'm like, well, ma'am, I've been unconscious for 3 days. I think I got enough. And I said, what do I have? She said, well, that's Dilaudid coming in your arm. And I said, okay. And I went like, touched my chest. I said, well, what's this? She goes, oh, don't touch that. I said, well, what is it? She goes, oh, that's 25 milligrams of fentanyl. So I've got a lot in the arm, a fentanyl patch. And I look at her and said, ma'am, I can't have this. I started trying to tear it off. She goes, I said, I have an airplane. I want to fly my plane again. She goes, sir,
you're never going to do that.
You have cancer. You'll never fly an airplane again. You will probably never drive a car again. I kind of had to explain to her the error of her ways, to the point that the hospital's patient advocate came down to ask me to calm down. I was later in that same hospital with the same patient advocate, who was a terrific lady. I wish I could remember her name. Wonderful lady. She pulled me aside and said, yeah, that I was, after me, that doctor pulled that 2 or 3 more times and is no longer with them. So,
that's good.
Yeah, that was refreshing. But I had that. Then, so Emory had those bad ones. And the final one that just, I went full time to Dr. Albers was November. I'm complaining my right leg is hurting. It just will not quit. It just aches. It hurts. And the primary oncologist, his assistants, wouldn't do anything. And so I finally had this one palliative care doctor who said, well, let's just take an x-ray and see what it is. Well, I took an x-ray, and my femur had been eaten up with cancer to the point that it was about to fracture. And if it fractured, it would probably slice my femoral artery, and I'd be dead in 2 or 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I called him and said, hey, have you seen the report? Oh, yeah. Well, what are we going to do? Oh, we'll talk about it in 3 weeks when you come in. I said, no, it says imminent break. I don't have 3 weeks. Well, we'll call a surgeon. A surgeon called me the next day to set up an appointment. First question, do you have cancer? Yes, the oncologist was the one that set this appointment up. So yes, I have cancer. Oh, we'll have to call you back. They never called back. I called out to Texas. I said, Dr. Albers, what do I do? He said, you're in no shape to drive. You're in no shape to travel this far. However, get your folks, get in the car, and drive out here. We'll take care of you. So my parents put their cat in the vet. We got my 80-whatever-year-old dad at the time, got in the car. We drove to Dallas, Texas, and we spent the next month and a half in short-term or the suites, and lived in a Holiday Inn suite for a month and a half so I could have the femur removed out of my right leg and the titanium rod put in its place. So
$6 million man ain't got nothing on you.
I am working on it. If I have to replace parts, I am going to stay alive.
There you go. So. Well, that really kind of wraps this up. You can tell me this, though. What's tomorrow going to look like? Do you have plans beyond survival?
Well,
and flying?
I live in the most wonderful place on earth. I still have the most wonderful parents. I happen to have met someone who I had told people that 5.5 years ago when this started, my whole thing had been, I plan to be here in 30 more years. So I had worked out 5 of those 30 years that I had told people I was going to do. So I was down to only having 24. I met a lady the other day, a while back here, and I told her that I'd been planning to do 30 years. I forgot to mention that I was already 5 years into it, so she's made me start the calendar over. So now I got another 30 years to go. So we're looking at having a great time with this place. It's just the most wonderful place to live. I treasure how much more time I've got with my parents. We'll be going up to see them, spend time with them. I plan to fly. I am looking at adaptations I'm doing both. I'm looking at adaptations for my toys, and I'm looking to find how to cure the plexopathy. I plan to walk. I have found a set of landing gear to put on my Harley so that I might be able to start riding again. We're looking at the options for flying again. I just want to live and live. And
well, God bless you.
There's a saying that I've used. It's religious, but it's not from the Bible, and it does get me. And I finally was able to tell my doctor this the other day. I said, I saw this early on. Said, the devil whispered to in the soldier's ear, "You're not strong enough for the storm." Well, today I could whisper to the devil, "I am the storm."
Yeah.
If I can make it through this, I can make it through anything. Yeah. So,
get thee behind me, Satan.
Yes, as there are several of them. Without being too religious, you do have to have some. There's got to be a greater being. There's something that tells me that I will make it. And so I just plan to keep pushing, keep living life. I want to experience, yes, I'm having mobility issues, but yet, I found someone that will help me help. And we've started discussing, it's hard for me to go a short distance, but yet we've started talking about, hey, I'd like to go back to Ireland and research my family. I would like to go. I want to experience as much more in life as I can.
Yeah, another thing worth mentioning, we don't do this alone. We get help.
No, we do.
Even though you have to be the person who is you have to be advocate number one.
Yes.
If you don't have advocate number two.
And three and four, yes.
And four, that would be a very, very lonely.
Oh, yes.
Lonely
well, like I say, I've turned to my parents in this, and I've turned to this community. My doctor, I show him this Spruce Creek Fly-In community. You and I are perfect examples of it. And I show him what we do here. And I'll show him videos, and he'll go, "Wes, that is part of the reason you're alive today."
That's right.
I have I have a friend that lives in one of the condos here. He'll walk up. It doesn't happen as much as it used to, but he used to walk into my den and say, "I just smoked a butt." We're going to have I was going to have some people. Do you mind if we use your lanai? I'm like, well, that's what I bought the house for. I want people. I love having friends over. Great, because you're going to have 20 people at your house in 15 minutes. I hope you're ready. That was just the way this place is. This place is like that. Where, let's have a party. Let's have friends over and no preparation. All suddenly you just send word out, hey, look in your pantry, see what's in there. Let's get together and...
The first words out of everybody's mouth when I first got here were welcome.
Exactly. This place, I don't know of a bad person in here. Everybody, I have loved them, their family. And I'll tell you, it's funny the people we have in here. As you know, John Travolta used to live here. And I've got friends that used to know him. And one person, I think Tim, said, he was just sitting there working on his plane, and John Travolta's just walking down the taxiway, and he comes over, starts talking to Tim, and said, yeah, he's going to start this movie. He has no idea what it was about. It was some fictional movies like Pulp Fiction or something. He just...
He did okay with that one.
Yeah, he did okay. But, that is just... When you go to, as we said, we have our tree where we all go on Friday nights and hang out, and you'll have 300 golf carts there, and people have food and drink, and people take their planes up and fly, and we just all socialize.
Yeah.
You'll be sitting there, and the person to your left is a retiree on a pension, making maybe $50,000 a year. The person to your right is an inventor who makes $50,000 a week, and no one cares.
Right. Yeah.
This is the most beautiful place.
Yeah, it is. Well, I guess we're going to put a wrap on this.
Okay.
I hope we're having the same conversation in 20 years.
We are. I do need to invite you on February 13th of 2029. John and I have already planned, and Stu's going to be there with his plane. We may try to get a few more planes this year, but at 1,300 hours on February 13th of 2029, we'll be doing the 10-year formation flight.
Perfect.
So if you'd like to join us, we're going to try to get, maybe instead of 2 planes, maybe a dozen planes go up for the 10-year flight.
That'll be great. I'll be there.
Sounds good.
All right. Now see ya. This music, by the way, came from the Free Music Archive online. A guy by the name, goes by Beat Mechanic. His name's Jonathan Horton. Mm-hmm. I just love to mention that because it's so good. Anyway, I hope those of you who are watching and listening and subscribe, do all that good stuff. I'll talk to you real soon. This is Harley Carnes. Be well. Fly safe.